Zoro is back again. Let's talk about it. What's up, captains? Welcome back to the other decks. My name's Casual Dobo, and today we're going to be talking about Zoro again. Now, this deck was an absolute menace in OP02, and honestly, thanks to the ban on Whitebeard's boat, he's kind of back again in the spotlight. So here's the deck list if you want to pause, jot it down, but we will be going over the core, the essentials, and the flex cards for this OP03 Zoro deck. And as we're going over it, let me know, what do you think about the cards? What would you change? And also let me know, are you tired of seeing this man's face? Anyway, let's get into the video. Alright, so starting with the leader itself, if you've been following One Piece for a while, you know what he does. But Zoro is a mono red, 5k power leader, 5 life, and Dawn times 1. Your characters get plus 1k power. So honestly, just a generically good anthem / aura ability that can really help power up your traditionally weak characters, as we've seen in OP01 and OP02. But that's not what we've come here for. Let's actually talk about the core of the deck. So really, the core here is kind of your searchers, right? This is the whole engine that runs the entire deck. Starting off with the main searcher, Curly the Dam. So this is Zoro's main squeeze from OP02, and she is back. Honestly, this is really good for swarm decks of any type that uses red, or any one-cost characters, really. Searches for every other searcher you need, such as Izo, which is a new card from OP03, and Izo is arguably probably the most important card of the set because Izo is a Whitebeard searcher. And with all of the Whitebeard cards that came out in OP03, this is a really, really solid card. This finds a lot of the key attackers that you're looking for in the deck, as well as some very crucial event cards. And then speaking of event cards, we have Buggy, also from OP03, and Buggy is another searcher that can be found by Curly the Dan, and this one specifically looks for our event cards. And you'll see why this whole entire theme of event cards is important later on. That's it. That's the core. I know, shocking that the core is still very little, right? But Zoro has really become this sort of search deck, and because it's so easy to power up these character cards, that's kind of what makes it really good. But since we know about the core, let's actually go ahead and talk about the essentials. First essential, we gotta talk about Makino. Great power boost to any army of one cost that we have, because we run a lot of them. Also, a 2k counter, so really brilliant card in that sense. Rush Zoro, staple in all red decks for that additional aggro. A natural attacker at 5k. Rush is just very strong. Now, if you notice in the deck list, this is actually one of the few sort of Straw Hat Pirate cards that we have. And honestly, we don't need that many because we're mostly running the Whitebeard package in here. But Rush Zoro is too good not to include in here. Now, getting into our Whitebeard support, we actually have Marco. Now, Marco is really good because it is a great attacker, also acts as removal, and also is a very sticky card to get off the board, right? So if you don't know what he does, 5 cost to play, 6,000 power, counter plus 1k on your turn on play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. So really good, kind of a lot of what we've seen in the OP02's removal. 3 cost power is kind of that threshold that we're trying to hit. But on KO, you may trash one event card from your hand, play this character from the trash as rested. And because we're running so many more event cards in this version of Zoro, this can actually come onto the board fairly easily. Next up is the character Whitebeard, and this is honestly just really good for defense and hits like a truck. So for those of you who don't know, 9 cost to play, so a little bit expensive, 10,000 power, fantastic, but on play, up to one of your leaders gains plus 2,000 until the start of your next turn. So it turns our leader Zoro from a 5k to a 7k that our opponent has to, potentially swing over. The other part of that sort of effect doesn't really matter, but the whole when attacking Dawn times 2 ability, really crucial, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. So really, once again, just active removal. This is just a steamroller on the board. And then the last essential card I want to talk about is actually a new event card, Fire Fist. Fire Fist is 3 costs of play. You may discard one event card from your hand, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less, and up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. And then trigger KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. So really, you really want to use this for the main ability because it pops not just one, but 2 characters on your opponent's board, potentially. And if you've been following One Piece, you probably have heard the discussion that red is maybe a little too powerful in OP03, and I honestly believe it's because of this card, right? Fire Fist is just really good removal. It replaces Jet Pistol as the main removal event in red, in my opinion, because it's 1 cheaper and KOs potentially up to 2 characters. And if you're playing any red, it means that you're probably playing a lot of events because of, the presence of Ace, Whitebeard, and Zoro gets to take use of this package a little bit, but being able to discard an event is fairly easy for red nowadays. But the amount of tempo and board presence you gain just by playing this thing is honestly a little insane. So a lot of what, Zoro is looking to do to kind of get out of sticky situations is really look for his Fire Fist. And those are the essential cards. Let's move on to our flex cards now. So for our flex in my build, I have Otama, who's honestly a really solid 2k counter, and synergizes with a lot of the removal we have, aka Fire Fist. So Otama is really great here. You could theoretically replace with any 2k counter that you have if you don't happen to have the Otamas. I think Otama is the most solid choice here. Next up on our flex cards is Magra, and this is once again another solid 1 cost character that can be searched by Curly the Dan, and just gives us a little bit of added aggression by powering up one of our other 1 costs who are available to attack. And the reason I'm calling him a flex card is because honestly he's not really necessary. I just like the added aggression of being able to use someone, like Buggy, who also has a little bit of immunity from slash characters, which is pretty nice. But allows Buggy and some of our other, characters that we put onto the board to be able to attack while we're waiting to try and find our Whitebeard support. Next up on the list is Marshall D. Teach, and honestly, as I keep playtesting with him, he probably should be an essential card and not a flex card. The thing I kind of was thinking was like, oh, he doesn't have any counter power, but he is so good with some of the other cards in here. If you don't know what he does, he has a 4 cost to play, 6,000 power, but when attacking, he may trash 1 character card with 4,000 power or more, and then draw 1 card. Then, this character gains plus 1,000 power during this battle. So, Teach actually solves some of the problems that we saw with Zoro in that, or red in general. There's not enough draw power, right? But by sacrificing something with 4,000 power or more, you get to be able to draw 1, and it goes up to plus 1,000, so a 7,000 power attacker. But if you don't want to sacrifice anything that's actually, 4,000 power or more, you can artificially power it up, say some of your lower 1 cost characters, thanks to Leader Zoro's ability as well as Dawn, right? So if you just activate Leader Zoro's ability, put 1 Dawn onto it, give everything plus 1k, Curly the Dan is an acceptable target for Teach's ability. Sure, if you want to put 1 more Dawn onto Curly the Dan, get that 5k swing, and then activate Teach, you certainly can. But if you don't, for some reason want to waste a Dawn, just put 1 onto Zoro, and then you're golden. In that way, even the smaller characters, when you're not able to really, power them up to be viable attackers, they still have some utility thanks to Teach. So yeah, like I said, I think honestly he is not a flex card anymore. He definitely should be an essential card. And then lastly, I do want to talk about our flex event cards. So first off, Guard Point, fantastic, solid counter for 1 cost, plus 3k power, very good. Very similarly, Radical Beam, excellent counter as well, especially as you're kind of dwindling down in life later towards the match. This is just fantastic value, so hold on to them if you can. And then lastly, the last event card I want to talk about is Whitebeard Pirates. So this obviously searches for more valuable Whitebeard cards, such as your Teach, such as your Marcos, and your Whitebeards themselves. That said, it can't search for event cards, so Fire Fist is not eligible. And now that we've covered all of the core, essential, and flex cards, let's actually take a look at the deck list and ratios here. And here we are at the deck list itself. So obviously, starting us off, we do have 1 leader, but then 4 Otamas, 4 Makinos, so solid 2k counter coverage. We have 3 Magras, 4 Izos, just because he's very good at searching for all of our Whitebeard support, 4 Buggies for the event, and then 4 Curly Dans for the Izos and the Buggies. Then, rounding off the rest of the list, we have 3 copies of Zoro, 4 copies of Marshall D. Teach, just because I do think that he is that important, 4 copies of Marco, very sticky attacker, 3 copies of Edward Newgate, aka Whitebeard, and then going into our events, 4 Radical Beams, makes sense. 2 Whitebeard Pirates, just because I don't want to see it too much, but you know, if it's early in the game, I use a buggy and I find Whitebeard Pirates, I'm definitely trying to pick it up, that or a Fire Fist. Rounding us off, we do have 3 copies of Guard Point, and then 4 copies of Fire Fist. And that is it. That is the OP03 deck list for Zoro. Honestly, a really good deck, very powerful because it is able to, you know, use these very cheap cards, these cheap searchers, and still be able to utilize them in more than one way. You know, we talk about Luffy as having, you know, Dawn flexibility. Zoro has character flexibility, which is why he continues to be rampant in any meta that we talk about. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you like the ratios? What additions or subtractions would you put into the deck? And do you think Zoro's time will ever come to an end? Let me know. And while you're down there, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, as we're going to be covering more OP03 One Piece as it begins to release in North America and elsewhere for the English meta. But if you want to see another menace in the OP03 meta, check out this video here. Thank you so much for watching, really appreciate it, and captains, remember, build what you like, play what you love, and I'll catch you in the next video.